Hello and welcome to the City of Gainesville's Virtual Development Review Board meeting. It is 6:34 on Tuesday, September the 29th, 2020. We have one item on the agenda tonight. So let's start off with roll call. Staff, can you conduct roll call, please?
Deborah Neal Marisi. Mr. Chair, this is Lawrence with the Department of Sustainable Development Board Liaison. I'm going to call the roll. Deborah Neal Marisi.
Present.
Mr. Rick Kane.
Present.
Miss Dr. Barbara Vandermeer.
Present.
Miss Uretha Bostic.
Present.
Mr. Brent Hartman.
Here, present.
Miss Sophia Corrigido.
Present.
Miss Herring. She's not Rebecca Herring out there. And the Chair Thompson.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Do any of the board members wish to make any changes or additions to the agenda for tonight?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make an adjustment to the agenda.
Go ahead.
I would like to add discussion by the board per your request. We don't have to do it tonight. Per your request to discuss the letter from the clerk's office dated September 23rd. If you wishes to do so.
Okay, well, let's have a vote on that. The background is that the City Commission would like a report at their January 21st meeting from this board. And sometime before then, we need to get a report together and answer a few questions that I think you've all seen or in email. As Lawrence suggested, we don't have to do it tonight, but we do need to do it at some future meeting. So someone would like to make a motion and we'll vote on whether to include in tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I am only interested in just broaching the subject. We need to have a little more detail about it. Staff will contact you about the procedure. I've spoken to the clerk about it, and we do not have a lot of detail, but you wanted to kind of just get the board's general feel about it. So that's why I'm putting it on the agenda, but we would like to discuss it later. Okay,
so the agenda item would be a preliminary introduction to this particular report with no detailed discussion and no votes. Is that correct?
Yes, at the board member comment.
Okay, I believe we do have to have a vote to see if we want to put it on the agenda. If no one is interested in doing it, it lapses by means of lack of a motion. If someone would like to discuss it preliminary tonight, maybe make a motion, otherwise we'll move on.
I'd like to make a motion to discuss the need for a report on the activities of the board in regards to the City Commission. And then we would start the discussion tonight.
Do we have a second for the motion?
Sure, I'll second.
All right. We have a motion as a second. How about show of hands vote? Those in favor?
Mr. Chair, I think you should just do a roll. Let me do a quick roll call.
All right. Hold your hands up and Lawrence will count us.
Mr. Kane, Mr. Herron, Ms. Bostic, Ms. Deborah Neal Marisi, Dr. Thompson, Barbara Vandermeer. I think we have 6, and Sophia, and we have 7 members vote in favor of doing it.
Is Ms. Herron here at the moment? Is she present?
I do not see her.
Okay, so she probably didn't vote on it.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion passes 6-0. Let's move on to the next item. Staff, can you please read the announcement?
I think you missed the approval of the minutes.
I sure did. I jumped right over it. My apologies. Approval of the minutes for August the 25th, 2020. Do any board members wish to make any edits?
I'll move to approve the minutes from our previous meeting on August 25th.
I'll second that motion. Deborah Neal Marisi.
We have a roll call vote.
Ms. Bostic,
Aye.
Ms. Vandermeer, Dr. Vandermeer, Mr. Kane,
Aye.
Deborah Neal Marisi,
Aye.
Mr. Hartman,
Aye.
Chair Thompson.
Yeah, aye.
Approval of the minutes 6-0. Mr. Chair, I have two sets of minutes. At some point in time, I will send them to you to get them signed so we can post them up.
Certainly, yeah. If you could send me a PDF file, I could probably sign it
Okay,
digitally.
yeah, that'll be good too.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is old business. Is there any old business?
Well,
No.
I think we have to do the announcements now.
All right, on my list of things to do, that was before the minutes. But,
Okay, whatever you want to do.
okay, well, let's do the announcement.
Okay.
Staff, can you please read the announcement?
Section 30-3.4 of the Land Development Code establishes the Development Review Board, including its membership, rules of procedure and functions, powers and duties. For variance and special exceptions, for variance and special permits, the Development Review Board will make the final decision on these applications at the meeting. When the Development Review Board acts in the advisory capacity to the City Commission on request for subdivision review, the final decision will be made by the City Commission at a future public meeting. The procedure for an appeal is set forth in section 30-3.58.
Thank you. I believe there's no old business, so let's move on to new business. Could staff please read the item into the record?
All right, I'll go ahead and read it in, Lawrence, so you can get the PowerPoint ready. Petition DB-20-86, variance, request for a variance to reduce the north front yard setback from 20 feet to 15 feet to allow expansion of an existing single-family dwelling. Tax parcel 06454-005000, zoned RSF3, single-family residential, 5.8 dwelling units per acre, located at 2719 Northwest 3rd Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
did forget to ask whether any board members had visited the site. If anyone has visited the site, can they please say so now? All right, let's move on with the presentation then. Thank you.
I assume you can see my screen, Mr. Chair.
Yes, blinking a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Yvette, thank you very much for this. Mr. Chair, Lawrence Calderon, a planner with the Department of Sustainable Development. This petition is a request for variance by Mr. Randy Wagner to reduce the front yard setback from 20 feet to 15 feet to allow expansion of existing single-family dwelling. Mr. Chair, as you can see, the general area, I wish to show West University Avenue on the south side, and the subject property is highlighted in sort of like an orange color. And you could see it's in an established neighborhood, which is more or less isolated. However, the area has a number of unique aspects to it. It has a number of pedestrian-sized blocks, as you could see, multiple access off University Avenue, pedestrian walks you can get from one end to the other. It is within close proximity to the university. And of course, we mentioned multiple access already. The subject property, as you can see, is highlighted there at the corner of Northwest 3rd Avenue and Northwest 27th Terrace. It's shown here. It is an improved property. The front part is a single family dwelling. a two-story building, and then on the rear of it is actually a garage, and close to it you will see another two-story building which is very close to the subject property and the other development around it. One thing I want to point your attention to would be the amount of vegetation that's surrounding the site, as well as those developments on the west side of the street, which looks fairly new. The property has a zoning of RSF3, residential single family, and actually, if you look at some of the lots, and you look at the development standards, you will see that those lots are significantly smaller than what is allowed by the RSF3 single family dwelling. Here you can see the RSF1, 3, and the properties on the subject property data, and you can see it's 6,000 square feet, but the lots, the subject property is about 5,400 square feet. And in most cases, the development is really close to the required standards for the RSF3 development, except in some small cases. And one of those would be in the proposed development, which is highlighted here, and I will discuss that a little further. As you can see, the plat for the Hibiscus subdivision, one thing I want to draw your attention to again is the size of the lots in there. Very small, narrow lots, and the subject property is in this block. And as you can see on this side, this is the subject property. It's a corner lot, and it is very small and narrow. Again, one of the aspects of this development and the neighborhood is that all those lots, what has happened over the years is that there have been minor subdivisions, as you can see in this case here. You can see a minor subdivision occurred here. And there's a lot of division, as you can see right here, and aggregation of lots to create larger lots, such as you can see in the heavier blue line. In this case, you see an aggregation of two lots. In this case, this lot was split. One part went to this one, and this one went to this one. So you can see there's a lot of adaptation in the neighborhood to adjust the lots to meet the needs of the families who live in that area. And this is the ultimate result. However, as you can see, there are those small lots as this one, some of those here, and these have been reconfigured into a minor subdivision as well as those. And that's because the people who did not take advantage of aggregating lots or splitting it, their lots got left behind, as in the case of the subject property. And this one is a corner lot, and it suffers from having two streets, one on the north side and one on the west side, which creates an additional demand of providing, meeting the standards for the district. Some of the aspects of the area, as you could see, is if you look at this, it has a sort of semi-rural characteristic to it. And the applicant indicates that these are the characteristics that drew him to the area and why he wants to remain in the area and stay there. As you can see, the street, there's no curb and gutter. You could see a lot of vegetation in the area. Similarly, you can see this street on this side. There are very large trees on this side, and another street on the north side, you could see it has a similar canopy to what's over on this side. And of course, we have distributed throughout the area a number of older structures. They are not, technically considered as historic structures, but they have been there for a long time, and they carry a certain character with them. So these are the factors and the elements that led the applicant to want to stay in the area rather than abandoning the property, selling it, and moving to somewhere else. This is the survey that shows the layout of the property. As you could see, the two-story structure here and a garage, and you can see the property on the adjacent lot is really close to the subject property, and that is a two-story structure right up against the property line. The applicant claims that this has historic significance in that it was part of a project done by an architect named Dan Branch during the 60s. And he was instrumental in working with several important areas around the area, such as the Tallahassee Museum, the museum at Crystal River, and our own City Hall. And if you look at the structure itself, when you look at some of the other slide, you will see some of the same reflections and architectural patterns that City Hall has depicted in here. So the applicant is primarily indicating that for historic reasons, for the size of the lot, the corner, the character of the neighborhood, these elements contribute towards making the property a unique one and different from other properties in RSF3 and within the neighborhood, and as such forms the basis for his request to grant a variance. Here you can see the historical aspect of the structure, and this is the two-story structure. You could see the front in here and the design over above it, which is sort of a balcony, and the open porch area. And you can see the columns that support the upper floor. And these are the main elements that the applicant is seeking to protect because it has historic significance. The property, I might add, is not in the historic district. It's not listed on the register. But what we've seen throughout Gainesville is that there are historic properties that are not on the register or not in a historic district, but they have a lot of elements and character that can be preserved. And staff believes that this, as the applicant has proposed, that this area has some important historical aspects to it. There is the proposal for the applicant to expand the property, and what he's planning to do is to create an addition in the front, but not to destroy the architectural element that's currently in the front. He's proposing to encase it in a sort of a glass type enclosure so that it remains in the form, but he wants to mimic what's there by extending it towards the front. And this is the point where that expansion to preserve and mimic that architectural element that encroaches into the front setback. So what the applicant has now is this request to reduce the 20-foot front setback from 20 feet to 15 feet. And as you typically look at, we want to look at the criteria for granting that variance. Special conditions, I have mentioned several of them, but I will touch on them again. You can see that this is an isolated neighborhood with multiple access on a major arterial. The applicant can just get out from there, jump on this main arterial and go east-west and then north-south. It has a number of neat blocks and small size blocks within what is allowed by the code. So it facilitates pedestrian movement throughout the neighborhood. You are not stuck like in this case. If something happens, you're stuck here and you cannot come out if something happens here. In this case, you can move through here, come out of the neighborhood from several other areas. The other element is, I want to draw your attention is to the heavy vegetative area. All around this side, as you can see, near the area, creates a very heavy canopy of trees around the area so that in some cases you can hardly see the area. It adds to what the applicant has indicated are the things that go towards him falling in love with the neighborhood. Here you can see it again as I showed it before, but this is a larger picture of it. And one of the things about it is that while this has the rural feeling, it is really close to the activity center. You can see right here, and this is the subject property. So this area, as well as the subject property, has some important characteristics and aspects to the owner of the property and to the property itself. And the applicant is pointing out that these are definitely unique aspects of the subdivision and the subject property. Again, what I want to show here would be this lot is the subject property. As you can see, these through the minor subdivision, they've aggregated lots to meet the size to put larger lots on there. In this case, the same thing happens on this side. And throughout this area, you could see the aggregation and splitting of lots to meet the need for larger building footprint in the area. Again, to go back to the criteria that granting the variance, that it would be the minimum, number 5E, sorry, that it would be the minimum that would be requested. Here, the applicant is requesting 15 feet. Actually, it's 14 point something, but we put it at 15 feet so that in case there are any encroachments. So he's asking for the minimum to allow the architectural element to exist on the subject property. And the variance, as I've stated, is in harmony with the general area. The applicant is not creating a structure that is extremely larger than what the lot can accommodate. He's staying within the limits of the side setback and the street side setback. And as you can see, granting that variance to 15 feet, the right of way on both sides of the property are very, very wide. So that this is the subject property, the edge of pavement is here. So you have all this area, which typically is not that wide in several of those streets, create additional buffer and separation from the subject property. So in effect, the actual separation of the encroachment, which is a very small area, it's just that balcony section. It's sort of equivalent to having a 20-foot setback in this area. Staff is recommending that you review this petition as I've presented, and based on the facts that and evidence presented by the applicant, and make a decision as to whether the request meets the criteria for granting a variance. With that, Mr. Chair, I would make myself available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Calderon. Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Calderon about this petition?
I have one question just to confirm. If you can go back one slide, so or I might even be able to tell here. What was the one where there was like blue lines on the map? I just want to confirm like where the end of the property is from the right of way. I couldn't tell which specific line that was.
This
yeah,
one?
right there. Yeah. Is it from the green line to the
This
left?
is the new setback of 15 feet if you grant the variance. The 20-foot is right here.
Okay.
So this actually, the bulk of the addition meets the front setback, but the architectural element that he is proposing would be encroaching into the front setback.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, I have one question.
Should I stop sharing, or you want me to leave this on the screen?
No, you can stop sharing.
Okay.
So this property fronts two roads, but I guess the address dictates in this case which is the actual frontage for the setback. Is that correct?
Because it's a corner lot, the applicant has the option of choosing which street is the front, providing he can meet all of the setbacks with that selection. In this case, third would be the front, so he would be meeting the rear setback on the opposite side. The street side is, I think, 7.5 or 10 feet. Let's see. So he is meeting that requirement. So he has the option of choosing whichever side he elects to be his front. And in this case, it's third.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I noticed that on the diagram you just showed us that there's a 7.5-foot setback from the south property line. It looks like the house. Oh, never mind. Yeah, okay, that answers my question. So So the only thing that encroaches into the 20 feet is this architectural element on the front. Looks like they've designed the front of the building to be outside the 20-foot setback.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there anyone else from the board have any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Harton.
So what I'm reading in the report is the request is to maintain the architectural integrity of the development by preserving the existing front design and glass and replicating the existing front elevations in the new expansion.
That's correct.
I'm having trouble understanding exactly what that means. I don't know if you'd be able to translate that into
I will
more
try.
basic layman terms but I don't understand exactly what the proposed development would be.
Let me give it a try.
Also, well, quickly, sorry, Lawrence, we also have the owner and the applicant is also available to answer those questions as well.
So let's see, Mr. Chair, if you could, I'll try sharing my screen again. And so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the architectural element on the existing development is in this area. And what he's doing is, instead of bringing that building right up to the edge of the existing building, he is creating a glass area right there, keeping the existing architectural element, and then building the addition on the other side, the north side of it, but replicating this section at the front so that you have the same element here at the front, but he's not destroying that element which is part of that building. I hope that helps.
So it's an additional structure in front, and then at the farthest northern point of the additional structure would be sort of a duplication of the front elevation on the current structure. Is that accurate?
That is
Okay.
correct. And
Okay, thank you.
at this point, I think I should relent and let the applicant give up and let the applicant explain further.
All right. Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and my name's Rylan Wagner. I'm the owner of the property at 2719 Northwest 3rd Avenue. And I have my own little presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Looks good, thank you.
Okay. So Dan Branch graduated from the University of Florida in 1954 with a bachelor's in architecture. In 1961, he became an associate professor of architecture for the University of Florida, and during his time spent in Gainesville, he designed several significant structures in town, most notably City Hall and the Dan Branch Residence, which is on the National Register for Historic Homes, now owned by Haneda Spring. During his time as an associate professor, the University of Florida architecture classes would participate in design-build projects. This was before the City of Gainesville Building Department was formed. The class would spend all year coming up with a plan, design it from the floor up, and build it themselves. Dan Branch stressed that building materials and proportion size were of the utmost importance in this original design. Sorry. And so the single family residence designed and built by Dan Branch's class, located at 2719 Northwest 3rd Avenue, was constructed in 1969. It was one of 3 homes designed by Dan Branch in the historic Hibiscus Park neighborhood. The house was selected to be on the 2020 Mid-Century Modern Tour of Gainesville based on its historical architectural significance. I purchased the home while attending school at the University of Florida in 2002. I've made this my permanent home, lived in it continuously, and improved it over the years. I love the neighborhood and all of its character and would like to set down family roots here, but its current square footage of 1,055 square feet is just not quite big enough to accommodate a growing family. After exploring the setbacks and property lines, I've come up with a preliminary plan that would enable me to add on a new structure to gain the necessary square footage. In order to maintain the design proportionality that was important to Dan Branch and his class, the new structure would mirror the old identically, including the balconies. But in order to maintain the design aspect and proportionality, a variance would need to be granted on the front setback to allow the balcony and support that are a unique design feature to the house. Without this balcony, the house loses the historical and architectural significance that Dan Branch and his class strove to provide. The new balcony would extend 4.5 feet into the front setback, while the concrete block supports would only extend 2.5 feet. The balconies are a unique design aspect created by Dan Branch with integral concrete block supports. They are repeated on the south and the north side of the house, and the goal would be to recreate the north balcony on the new proposed addition. If the variance is granted, the front setback would now be at 15.5 feet to the property line. And from the property line to the asphalt of Third Avenue, there was actually another 15 feet. So from the edge of the proposed balcony, we have actually over 30 feet to the roadway. If this variance is granted, it would in no way encroach upon the roadway or detract from the harmony of the neighborhood. Hibiscus Park is a neighborhood of acknowledged historic significance to Gainesville, and in its over 100-year-old history, there have been many different homes constructed over this time period, through many different years of standards and setbacks, or even some with no required setbacks at all. If this variance is granted, it will continue the eclectic nature of the neighborhood in general, and it will also establish the opportunity to further balance the makeup of the neighborhood, bringing back more of the family ownership side over the student rental side. The neighborhood has always been both families and students because of its close proximity to the university, and it still feels important to have that balance. So that's kind of it for my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Wagner?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Let's go.
it's a curiosity question. I like what you're doing with this project. How are you going to connect? You have a patio in front of the house right now,
Yeah,
and you're going to enclose almost a glass atrium between the two houses.
correct. The deck is actually going to be coming up. There's just no way to form foundations or
Of course,
anything
of course.
underneath it. So the whole deck would come up, and then basically we would have basically a glass breezeway is kind of how I'm going to maintain the design elements between the two structures. So it'll almost look like two identical structures right next to each other, connected by a small glass breezeway.
So it's curiosity because I think it's an intriguing approach. So are you able to replicate your aluminum railings off of your balcony?
That I'm going to save the existing one and reuse it on the north side. Yes, ma'am. It
Wonderful.
will look, the goal is to look exactly the same.
It's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Kane.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner, you have a background in construction, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I have full confidence that what you're proposing to do, you have the ability to do. So I'm impressed with the plan here.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. It's taken a while to get to this point. So I've tried to kind of make sure I've crossed off all my T's and dotted all my I's.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Harper.
I was just going to comment. I appreciate your presentation, Mr. Wagner. I think it very well answered the question that I was trying to ask Mr. Calderon earlier. It looks very professional, and I agree with what others have said that it does look like a very great idea and nice way to preserve the architectural history of that property. So thank you for that presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board like to talk to Mr. Wagner? Okay, let's move it on now to public comment. Do we have anyone with public comment on the line?
No, sir, we have no one on public comment.
Okay, there's no one on public comment, so moving on. Start the board discussion on this item. I'll kick it off. I think it's a great project. You've gone to extreme lengths to try and replicate the very, well, it's a unique, it's a unique feature, architectural feature of this particular house. And I think it would be a real attribute to the neighborhood, and the only thing projecting into the setback is in fact balcony. There are definitely, staff has very convincingly pointed out the uniqueness of this property, such that all of the conditions that appear to need to be met here are met. And so I have no problem supporting it.
Yeah, I think it's a good project. I remember sitting on a large development where there was a necessary width of pedestrian right of way in front of this business building on a major corridor, and they were hanging balconies over that. So it's very similar. Even though you're going into the setback, you're not actually impeding any of the movement, pedestrian movement, and the front of the house.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board? Or if nobody has any comments, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we approve petition DB 20-86. I believe it complies with the criteria for getting the variance.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second it. Go.
I think Mr. Hartman just got in there. So motion made by Ms. Bostic, seconded by Mr. Hartman. Let's have a roll call vote on the motion.
Chair, Deborah Neal Marisi,
Aye, yes.
Mr. Brent Hartman,
Aye.
Mr. Rick Kane,
Aye.
Dr. Barbara Vandermeer,
Aye.
Miss Euretha Bostic,
Aye.
Rebecca Harem, Sophia Corrig, oh, sorry, Sophia, Dr. Ewan Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, you have a majority vote.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0.
Yes.
So moving on to the next item, which was the item that we added to the agenda, which is the City Commission report.
Mr. Chair, can I just make a brief announcement? Although we'll cover it in the letter, but just for the benefit of the applicant, somebody is muted. The variance is good for 6 months, so you would have to make sure that you implement it before that. Other than that, it expires. But I will put that in a letter and send it to you. So, but just a heads up. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. So now I guess we can get to the next item. I think we can make this really brief because I understand that staff is going to be sending us some more materials that we can deliberate on before getting this project out, before we get this report out. So I'll just go through and read what the City Commission is asking. The City Commission is meeting on September the 17th. Well, there it's in front of you. It's requested that all advisory boards make a meeting, and there are 5 elements, or 5 topics that they'd like addressed. First of all, what we understand the mission of the board to be. Secondly, 3 most important things that we think were done during the last year. The 3 most important things we're working on now, how the City Commission can help, and what else does the City Commission need to know. I think, if I had to write this now, I would be confused as to the 3 most important activities, because this board is a reactive board. We react to petitions that are brought in front of us. So we could go through the petitions and say, well, we approved this for the following reasons, so maybe that would be a start to do that. And then the same thing is, what are we working on now, the three most important activities? We don't really know until they come on the agenda. And how the city commission can help, well, that will follow on from whatever we say there. So that was my initial confusion about this, and maybe by the time staff has thought about it more and given us feedback, given us guidance, it'll be very clear on how we should proceed. But I just thought we should discuss it now to see if anyone has any ideas how to move forward on this. So is anyone on the board? I see a hand from Ms. Marisi. Deborah?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
should I stop sharing this now?
Go ahead,
Sure.
Mr. Calderon.
Do you want me to stop sharing this or?
Oh, yes, please, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, part of mine is a question for Mr. Calderon, which will, I think, help clarify. But very briefly, I went through and did some quick answers. And I think the mission of the board, and this is where the discussion would be necessary. We probably should not do it tonight since there'll be more information coming. But one of the missions of the board is to retain the spirit of the board, which is to provide some flexibility in the codes with these variances and special permits, so that if there are special needs, then the board has the legal right to give someone the ability to do that. So the three most important things that I thought about was increasing the knowledge of the board itself. There's always an effort to educate people on the board, talk about previous examples. For example, one of them is the concern we've had with transportation, multimodal transportation. And just the taking on one of the roles that has been a shift in recent times to the board is adopting the Board of Adjustment duties, which is the variances rather than special permits and the other types of needs that are coming through with development plans. How the city commission could help to serve the better to serve neighbors, I think that will definitely take some thought process and discussion with the board itself. And what else does the commission need to know about your board? I think that the board is extremely important, that it be visible and that it have a role in these various variances and developments. I have always felt that I know other cities streamlined the large developments no longer come to us. But there are times when there are impacts that are not in the codes, that are not thought of. And I've, in the past, wondered if it would be helpful if we still had some input on some of these very large developments that are coming through. So I think there's a variety of ways to discuss these issues. Mr. Calderon, you have more information from the board. Is it more specific about what they're asking?
I have
the commission?
I received the letter together with you. I've had some thoughts about it. I am sure you were on the board, both the Board of Adjustment and the DRB, when we had the annual budget. And we made a presentation to the City Commission on what we did in the past and looking towards the future. And our budget was allocated to some extent based on what we presented. And I must say we had the largest budget among all of the three boards. So that says something for your work and what you're doing. I also think of you as the implementers of the kind of oversee of the land development code. When you look at development, you look at it with that respect. And the land development code is implementing the comprehensive plan. And so we're currently in the process of addressing that, so we can kind of link those elements together as we prepare something for the commission. And of course, you are also charged with working with the city's plan board to bring ideas that you see as you do the brush fire work of implementing development, and how it impacts or how it jives or not jive with the land development code, and to suggest changes to that. So you do have a role. And of course, public participation is another item which you mentioned. So I think there are things that we need to talk about, but what I would like the board to do is to think of those questions as you go about your daily lives, and see how it, what you can bring to bear in terms of your role on the Development Review Board.
Thank you. That's good guidance, two sets of good guidance. Does anyone else from the board have anything to say at this very early stage?
I have a question for Lawrence. So you mentioned like us at some point having some kind of communication with the city plan board, whether it's about like land development code or kind of like how we each, you know, work on things related to that. And that made me think of also the comprehensive plan update. And I'm not sure if anything about that was going to come before our board, or when and if we would meet with the city plan board about those things you mentioned.
I'm waiting for Yvette to jump in, but
Oh, yeah, we talked about that very briefly, I think, at the last meeting. You may not have been at that meeting, but we had a plan board meeting scheduled, I believe, for last Thursday that had to be canceled. And at that meeting, the group that we have, the consultants that we have working on the comp plan update, they were on the agenda to set on the agenda to kind of discuss that process and really get some feedback from the board. We also planned the same thing for the Development Review Board. I don't know if you're aware, but there have been some changes in terms of how future meetings will occur as of October 1st. So we're still trying to work through those changes and figure out a date as to when that's actually going to occur. But yes, we do plan on having the consulting group kind of have a discussion with you all about the comp plan.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else like to add anything?
I just have one more additional item that I want to just give you a heads up on. If I could go ahead. The clerk sent out a message also about your tenure of service. I think we have one board member whose term is going to expire. And I have kind of spoken or chatted with Aretha about reapplying, as well as Sophia, to reapply to the board. I think the deadline is the 30th of September. The clerk actually called and asked me what happened. She didn't hear from any of you. So they're looking to see what kind of interest you have, and I would urge you to do that. Next month would be election of officers if we do have a meeting. The chair's tenure is 1 year, but it doesn't mean you cannot reappoint him, but that's totally up to you. But give that some thought about next meeting in October, if we do have a meeting. And of course, I think Yvette mentioned that as of October the 1st, we would be back to in-person meetings. I don't know how that affects everybody. I know it affects one person. So just information.
Yeah, Lawrence, I submitted my application a couple or maybe a few days ago. Am I supposed to reach out to the clerk directly?
If you did, that's okay. It wouldn't hurt to follow up.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I don't think that they're making a decision until after they receive all the applications, Lawrence.
Yeah, after the 30th.
After the deadline, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll be coming back to that then. And I believe that's all that we have on the agenda, unless anyone would like some comments from the board. So does any board member have any items for discussion? Guess we've already discussed them. So that's it. If someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, show of hands. Unanimous, 6-0. Thank you. So the meeting is adjourned at 7:25 p.m.